All right, well, welcome to the Hydroplate Week of Celebration. We are so excited to be able to honor Walt Brown and promote the ninth edition of his Hydroplate book. And we are honored to have Matt Nailor here with us, all the way from Palm Springs, California. And he is a co-host of Standing for Truth on YouTube. That's a YouTube channel where they do debates on almost every topic. And it's really good because we need all the information to make informed decisions, and we're not getting that in our churches, our schools, our museums, our education system. So Matt's seen a lot of different debates. He's seen a lot of issues, and he's here to tell us what he knows about the hydroplate and Walt Brown. So welcome, Matt Nailor. Thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, what a
I usually
blessing.
don't do interviews, so
Well, yeah, the shoe's on the other foot this time. Yeah,
yeah.
put you on the hot seat. How did you find out about the hydroplate theory?
I knew about the hydroplate theory before I even knew that it was called the hydroplate theory.
Uh,
And that's the crazy thing about it. I was so new to young Earth creation and everything that I kind of just jumped in the deep into the pool into apologetics. Like I became a Christian, and then I like science so much that I kind of just jumped right in. I found Donnie online actually. I found him debating people randomly on YouTube, and I was like, "Who's this guy? This would be fun to like team up." There's no teams at all. Matter of fact, all I saw was division between young Earth creationists, and I was like, "Why is there all this division? They're fighting over models and over what I thought were trivial things." I said, "Let's kind of just form a team and bring everybody together, and we can learn and debate against all of these things just together. Let's form a group." And that's exactly what we did. And by doing that, I kind of learned along the way. But the probably the most fascinating thing is when I was into Noah's flood, you learn about hydroplate theory, but you might not know what it is because you come across it on social media and you don't really know what you're watching. People don't say, "This is hydroplate theory. This comes from Walt Brown." You just see a flood video. And I was like, "Okay, this seems kind of neat. What evidence is there for this?" And then you start asking the questions and you go down the rabbit hole. And that's kind of what I did. I didn't learn it was hydroplate theory for probably 2 years.
Really? Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, well, I'm glad that you teamed up with Donnie and how you guys get this discussion going because yeah, we need to get all the information so make people can make informed decisions. And I think Donnie is probably the best up and coming creationist we have out there because he's seen it so much. And you're pretty good too, but he's been doing it for so long, and yeah, we it's exciting to see this discussed. So you knew it was the hydroplate before it was called the hydroplate. Yeah,
Right.
that's exciting. What do you think the strongest evidence is for the hydroplate? What puts that flood model above the rest of them?
Like any good scientific model, there has to be accurate, testable predictions that come for first. And Walt Brown made massive amounts of predictions for his model. So that the confirmation of those that came years later are what really strengthen something because anybody can release information about anything. And what evolution tends to do, I've noticed, is that they'll make a prediction and get it wrong, and then they'll just kind of retrace and say, well, it actually still fits evolution, but this is how it looks now. It's a retrodiction. They wait for evidence to come out now, and then they force fit it into the model. Well, Brown came along and just said, no, these are the predictions that are going to flow from the model if it's true. And lo and behold, he's got way more than a 50% accuracy on these, way more. And so that's pretty good considering his field of expertise was like in two areas in his life, really. And yet he made predictions on cosmology, paleontology, genetics. Like he's very well rounded. And when you start to look at all of the different predictions that have come true, it's pretty good. So we're going to cover some of those today.
Yeah, and he seems to have, when you make accurate predictions, tends to be you're on the right trail. What ideas
Yeah,
do you have to reach people with this?
yeah, absolutely. Here, I'll share a screen with you. Ooh, okay.
There we go.
I'm guessing you can see my screen now
Yeah, I
because
see it.
everything else disappeared.
Crystal
I don't
clear.
really
Yep.
usually use this app. So, I made this just a little bit ago. I would say that there are five different things. I know this image shows four. I don't know why it gave me four instead of five. That's AI for you. But I would have to say that these are probably the most important aspects of how we can promote something online. This is kind of like what we do over on Standing for Truth. We team up, we collaborate with others, we form a team. And when you bring together a team and more people that can think differently, you get more skills from other people. You might get a friend that's a geologist that comes in, and your specialty could be over in genetics. So now you've got two heads are better than one, right? You've got two people in two totally different fields that when you now come together to look at evidence, you view it totally different. So this is great. You're getting different perspectives from other people. So the larger that team gets, the better it gets because you might have a person like Donnie who's great at promotion and he knows how to make a post that attracts people's attentions. He writes very good to people. As where somebody else, they might be horrible at that. They're like, oh, I'm not good at promoting anything. I've never sold anything in my life, actually. But however, I live in a laboratory and I'm great at making studies and writing and doing journal articles and publishing scientific papers. So that's great. That's what you want. And as much diversity as possible. And younger people think different than older people. So you want a good age group difference because younger people tend to live on social media much more. And so their skills at being able to be in touch on social media, they said, now this is what people are interested in. Their attention span now is 1 minute YouTube shorts. So we've got to make videos for those. And that would be my first thing because building the team is a harder thing than you actually think it is. But once you do, then you've got a good foundation because now you can branch out and help each other by doing your own things on your own time.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. Yeah, we need a lot of different backgrounds. We need a lot of different ages. And it reminds me of John Wooden's quote. He says, when everyone thinks the same, nobody thinks. So that's step one, collaborate with others. Are there any other ideas that you got?
Absolutely. The next one would be target social media, news articles, or sorry, news, and then make articles, and then any public talks that you can think of. This really gets it out to the public in general. Now, the general public, they've heard of Noah's flood. Almost everybody has, but they don't know any details about it. Matter of fact, most people think that it's a too fantasy to be true. Matter of fact, most people think that Noah's flood had to have just been local because the concept of a global flood to the average person is just it's kind of gone over their heads. Now, it's true that even in scripture it mentions that in the last days people will not believe that there was a global flood. It could even be talking to believers as well because of this local flood concept. But what Walt Brown has done is he's taken the aspects of what Scripture says that it clearly reads to be a global event. Because, I mean, really, why in the world would Noah bring birds on a local flood event? And why would God give us a rainbow as a representation of he would never flood the earth again? Or, I'm sorry, why would he never do a local flood again when there's local floods all the time? And give us a rainbow for it. Doesn't even make logical sense. So I think once we target social media and we answer the most basic questions, then they go, okay, that makes sense. But where did all the water go? How did Noah feed the animals? You got to have something as a backup. But if you're targeting social media with like the basics all the time, then people go, oh, okay, then they can take that next step because it passes that blocker that they already have built up in their mind that they've heard from somewhere else or that they've read from somewhere else or told from a critic. It can't be true because of A, B, C, and D, right? That's what I encounter the most on social media.
Right. Yeah. And and that's the problem I think we have in the churches. A lot of churches compromise that worldwide flood. And and it's who was it? Fred Williams and Fred Williams, I think Bob Enyart. They were talking about that the liberal churches, they all believe in a local flood. That's like the first step. And, if God didn't mean what he said at the beginning, he didn't mean what he said at the end. So yeah, and then you're right, the social media, and that's something I'm still struggling on. If there's anybody out there who wants to help, we need to have some Hydroplate shorts out there. I can make things a minute long, but I don't know how to get them into the vertical format instead of the horizontal format, so it doesn't show up as shorts on the YouTube channel. So if there's anybody with technical expertise out there, we can use them. Well, you probably know how to do it, Matt. But yeah, we need to get the social media, and that's where the next generation is living. And I talked to them at college, and they like thinking. When I talk to them about this theory, they get excited about it because they like to compare and contrast and they like to think. They don't like to be forced to think a certain way. Okay, so you got targeted social media, news
Yeah.
articles, public talks. What else you got?
Yeah, one thing too is what I like to do is I like to put a challenge out there to anybody. Some people go, young Earth creation. Why don't you just submit to peer review? I say, why don't you submit to peer review? And what I mean by that is go ahead and write up an article and
Yeah,
title it anything associated
yeah,
with young Earth creation, and it will get rejected without being reviewed at all. That proves right there there's bias in the scientific community. They're not interested in equal terms of anything. It's already made up its mind of what to believe is true. So it's very anti-scientific. You mentioned this earlier briefly was that hydroplate theory should be taught at churches. And I agree. And the main reason why is because we need to educate the parents. You see, kids might like it, but they're going to go off to school and they're not going to really know much about things. Matter of fact, that's one of the reasons we actually found that there's a massive falling away later. I actually have those numbers. If I can find them within 10 seconds, I will show you what I mean.
you mean
Is that
Ken Ham's numbers with already gone? That one? There's
yeah,
they've updated
that's
them.
a really good one. Yes. It's showing that yeah, most 52% said that there's errors in the Bible. These are people that believe, by the way. These aren't even the ones that fall away. Is that they said that there's millions of years of time. So they go off to school and they learned that evolution is true. And where did they get their knowledge from? That creation was true. Their parents or their church. So their parents and church have equipped them so little that they can't defend anything, even the basics. So when they come along and their parents are like, well, my school told me Adam and Eve isn't real and there's no evidence for it. We evolved from primate ancestor. What do you have to say? And they're like, well, no, that's not true. The Bible says this. And the kid goes, yeah, but they've given me so much evidence to show me that's not true. What evidence do we have? And they can't. They just shrug. They go, well, God's
Right,
word is good enough. It's
right,
like, well, is it good enough for a college professor? No.
right.
So that's where we come in, and that's why this is so important. You have to educate people.
Oh yeah. Just within the last month, I've had two examples. We had at our college, we got a Creation Science Club. And the very first meeting, there was somebody who grew up in the church. She went to all the Sunday schools, she went to all the camps, she went to all the retreats. And she asked, well, what happened to the dinosaurs? And I explained her the biblical perspective, and I said, has anybody ever had a microphone and talk about creation like this? And she said, no. And so that's a real problem. I've heard, some places they don't want to be divisive or they don't want to take a stand, which I think is shooting ourselves in the foot because we got a theory that has a lot of biblical support and it's got a lot of accurate predictions, and we're not giving it to the students. And then just the other week, I was at a college, had a table, and this is a private college where a guy was going to be a pastor or a youth pastor, one of the two, and he was teaching second graders at church. And he had a second grade girl ask him about dinosaurs, and he didn't know what to tell her. He said he was going
Mm,
to go check with the pastor and do some research. And so I asked him, well, what are you going to tell her? And he said, I don't know. And so I
mm,
explained to him the biblical perspective. And there was another time there was a girl that oh yeah. She asked the priest about dinosaurs. She was going through confirmation, and she didn't get a good answer, so she concluded that either Adam and Eve are false or dinosaurs are false. And how can dinosaurs be false if we find their bones on every continent, even their
yeah,
footprints? So
right.
they're got to be true. So I looked at the mom or the aunt and I said, your daughter or niece is real close to kicking the Bible out of her life for the rest of her life. I said Adam and Eve are true and dinosaurs are true. What's false is millions of years. And so if you could, Don or Matt, would you want to give a biblical interpretation of dinosaurs for people who may not know or might have some confusion on that?
Yeah, according to scripture, they would have been made around the same time as man. They would have been made on day 5 or 6, and that's right around the exact same time as man. So we would have seen them. It would have been in the recent past. And what we can do then is we can actually go to what Walt Brown actually said, because this is about one of his predictions, actually. He said bones and organic remains and contain enough carbon that they're believed to be 100,000 years old, right, will be shown to be relatively young in blind dating methods. And lo and behold, exactly what we found. And here is a image that I
Wow.
pulled up that shows you all of the dates that we found, where they've been found, and
Wow.
all have uncontaminated carbon-14 within them. And you'll notice that the range of the ages are all very similar. So you would think if contamination was the problem,
Yep.
why would they all be contaminated with very similar amounts of carbon?
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. If something's going to be contaminated, it's going to be contaminated with a little bit, a lot,
Right.
tiny amounts. It would range. It would range from all over the place. Instead, we find a very consistent contamination theme. And it's not just in fossils, but the young Earth creation's perspective would say, okay, it is true that we find some radioactive elements inside of them that date old, but in contrast to that, we also find radioactive elements that can only be there if they're young. So we find evidence for both of them. Which can best explain it? Well, again, it goes back to predictions. What did Walt Brown think we would find? Evidence that they would have youth inside of them and not only old. And here's where we actually found coal samples. And you'll notice that coal samples from the rate team found an average range of 49,600 years for carbon 14. And again, look at the age range. Again,
Okay.
very consistent themes
Yep.
of contamination inside of them. And you might be thinking to yourself, but wait, look at those ages. Those ages are old, aren't they? They're not within 6,000, so therefore it must be that the old dates still show not young Earth creation. And that brings us to the most important question of all, something that I found was actually asked in a book in 1999. Assuming, the most important word, there was a flood and that it did occur, little, if any, C14 may have existed before the flood. This would give anything older than the flood an appearance of old age. So I decided, let's make sure, let's double check this. We can ask AI itself. Ah, yes, the amount of carbon 14 entering Earth's atmosphere is considered relatively consistent over time. That's the uniformitarianism idea. Uh-oh, wait a minute. But
Yep.
what if it's not? And
Exactly.
guess what? When you date something near a volcano, what does it do? Because areas of recent volcanism, the plants capture volcanic carbon dioxide, which is devoid of carbon 14, as well as atmospheric CO2. So the results would decrease in radiocarbon concentrations. Therefore, they would appear much, much older. So if something was 4,500 or 5,000 years ago and there was a global flood and catastrophic volcanism going, which started the Ice Age, like Walt Brown says, well, guess what? Everything tested with carbon 14 would date extremely old because new carbon is devoid of what it needs to have in it. So when you test a sample and it's going to appear very, very old, even though it's brand new. And they admit, I can't believe they admit this, by the way. You're going to love it. If a C14 date supports our theory, this is evolutionists talking, we put it in the main text. If it doesn't entirely contradict us, we put it as a footnote. Ah, and if it completely is out of date, we just drop it entirely.
Right. Right. Yeah, and they
That's
don't
real
do
good science right there, huh?
right, right. And they don't do blind tests on those either. I know Bob Enyart, Mary Schweitzer, she found the dinosaur blood.
Right.
And so then Bob Enyart calls up Jack Horner, that's Mary's boss, and said, I'll give you $20,000 if you carbon date that bone. And he said, well, we wouldn't expect to find carbon 14 in here because it's too old. And Bob says, yeah, I know, but we wouldn't expect to find blood cells in there either. And long story short, Jack Horner did not carbon date those bones. But you had that one table that had all those dates on the dinosaurs. What was the source of that? That was about 4 or 5 slides back. Yeah, that one.
Yes, that one.
Where did you find that? That's gold right there.
I actually made it.
Oh wow.
I have an old document that I've saved over
Yeah.
the years. Every time I come across a contamination, I save it in the document. And then for this, I decided let's throw them all together and compile them. Actually, I have a better one, and it has the picture of the dinosaur next to it. Like down here's a
Wow.
hadrosaur dinosaur, right? And
Yeah.
Triceratops. I
That,
actually have a better image that's more widescreen, but I couldn't find it in time for this, so I
oh, that's
remade
fine.
this.
If I think if you sent that to Fred Williams at Real Science Radio, they might be able to put that next to their soft tissue table.
Okay, I
Yeah,
will send it over.
that's tremendous. Yeah, because you're right. They're all about the same amount of C14, and
Yeah.
if it was contamination, it should be all over the place. But
Yeah,
it's not. That's
or
a
at
very
least or at least the upper end, right? I mean,
right.
contamination, like, yeah, okay, you would get like carbon dating goes up to about 55,000 years
Yeah,
maximum,
yeah,
maybe a little older, but it's
right.
like completely maxed out in age.
Yeah,
So why is it everything on the farthest end of maxing out age? It should be at the
yeah,
tip top, right? Like, oh, it's old. It's there, but it's still super old, like the maximum date you can get. Instead, no, there's like a contamination range. It's
right.
like, right? It's like, wait a minute, what's going on? Everything's showing a very consistent date. Why? Because the flood happened, and the volcanism that was there, that the animals were around, got embedded into their fossils. So that's why we see it that way.
Yeah, and I think the rate team, I think it was Steve Austin, he tested coal from all these different layers. All these different
Yeah.
layers in the geologic column. He tested coal from all those, and they all had pretty much a similar amount of carbon-14. And again, if it was contamination, it should be all over the place. But that shows that they were all pretty much laid down at the same time. So what else do you got? What other things besides talking to the church?
I would say content for kids because they're the next generation. They're learning. They're like a sponge. They can retain information better than even you and I could. We can't pick up an instrument and max it out in a few months like a child could because their dendrite in the brain is still really active at
Oh yeah.
growing and building new pathways. So
Yep.
when they get a hold of information, I say teach them both. Let them learn evolution. Go right ahead. They're going to know it's fake right away anyway.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is they're going to be equipped with knowledge to be like, oh, okay, I can hear this, but I know when I'm hearing nonsense. When I watch Lord of the Rings, I know it's not real. Just like a kid, they can be around evolution and be like, oh yeah, I heard this before, and they won't believe it because they already know that they've been lied to, that it was originated as a myth and pushed as a lie with an agenda behind it, going all the way back from to the very beginning to the roots of the theory. And so once they know that, it's very hard to change their mind on something. So content for them is probably really important because the content for you and me is going to be different, very different than it is for a kid during the different age groups.
So yeah, we can give them the truth and help them to, give them some tools to stand up to the evolutionists, like where did matter come from? How did life begin? Yeah, and then also, dinosaurs, they know so much about dinosaurs. Teach them the biblical perspective, you know? And made on day six, two of every kind got on the ark, and then after them, everything else got, they were small to get on the ark. And then the flood came and killed the rest of them, all the animals and people and dinosaurs. A lot of them turned into fossils. And then they got off the ark, and people called them dragons. And they killed them, and they carved them in castles and temples and caves. So people definitely saw dinosaurs, but they didn't have that word, so they called them dragons. And even in the Bible, they talk about dragons, especially Job 40:15 describes behemoth, and that's a long-necked dinosaur. So we did see them, but dinosaurs are the gateway to evolution, and evolution's the gateway to atheism. And they get the kids thinking millions of years right away, so we have to get to the kids before they do. So you're right, there's a definite need for kid-centered biblical material, especially when it comes to the hydroplate. What else you got for us, Matt?
Yeah. No, that's a good one for sure. I would on the last and final one, I would say practical application. They would be good to have like articles and things out there for people to come across that shows them that we have evidence in geology, paleontology, genetics, and more, and there's practical application that can flow from this. So, for example, if there was a flood and it happened 4,500 to 5,000 years ago, what would we expect to find in genetics because of this? Well, we would expect to find fast mutation rates because there are only a few mutations in general in the entire public. So if there's not a lot of mutations, but the mutation rate is fast, that means there's not a lot of time.
Right.
So what would that mean? Well, evolution predicted slow mutation rates. Well, guess what? The entire theory of evolution hinges upon mutations. So if they got mutations wrong, everything else completely collapses and falls apart. What do we know from pedigree germline mutation rate studies? Mutation rates are fast, exactly what we predicted and assumed that it would be true. So if we have something that we predicted and got correct, and it points to a young Earth timeline and a recent global flood, catastrophic in nature, then that tells us right there that the practical applications flows completely from that, and it moves into medicine, it moves into which is probably the most important, actually, by the way, medicine, because if genetics is deteriorating and we're treating it like natural selection will just fix the human race, we're in deep trouble. Our
Right.
model is much better for medicine than anything else. But it also shows that evolution is not true because not only did they fail the prediction, but it doesn't allow for a long timeline because of that. So those are practical applications. That's just one practical application that can come from it from a genetic standpoint, but they can also use it in geology and then paleontology because those fields have to do directly with global flood. For example, we can take Walt Brown's predictions on the Grand Canyon if you want, and we can move over to there um, as a practical application for what we can do with the hydroplate theory.
And yeah, practical applications would be great. Absolutely. Do you have one more for us, or is that the last one?
I think that what did it. Let's
Oh,
see,
good,
collab with
good, good,
others.
good. Yeah, review these real quick.
Yeah, we have to collab with others, practical applications we just went over, content for kids, teaching at churches, and then there was another one in there. Oh yeah, target social media, news, art,
Yeah,
make articles, and do public talks. Those were
yeah,
the five that I believed were the most important to really kind of branch out and forming a team, of course. And then after you formed a team, you can be with people worldwide now. It doesn't even matter.
yep,
Like I've never even met Donnie.
yep.
He lives up in Canada somewhere, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we've never even met, but we've been a team now for 6 years.
Wow.
So he started in 2018. I found him in 2019. We've teamed up, and then all we've ever done since then is write articles, make videos, and just try to diversify as much. We write books. We do as much as we possibly can for a small group, and then we branched out and invited more people into the team,
Right.
and that's pretty much how I recommend anybody does it because it worked for us. And who are we? We were nobody. We're just guys sitting around the house. And then COVID hit. We're like, what are we going to do? I was like, I don't know. Let's just make videos. Let's just like bombard the internet and flood it with content and debate all of these critics that say we're wrong.
Right.
That's what we
So how
did.
would, if somebody wanted to join your team, how would they contact you or
Oh,
Donnie?
I would say they could go to our websites. They can message us directly. They could
Would that be
find us on.
standing for truth or
Yeah,
what?
probably easiest on YouTube. Just leave comments. Just say like, "It
Okay.
is your team? Can I join your team? Like, what are you
Right.
doing?" Or on social media like Facebook and
Yep.
X.
Oh,
These are
you're on all
great
those.
because
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Good.
Donnie's
Yeah. And if anybody wants to be on a hydroplate team, they can email hptwins@proton.me. I think it's hptwins@proton.me. And you might even be able to go into hydroplate.org. There might be a contact place there. So we're getting close to the end of the interview. Do you have any closing comments that you'd like to make, Matt?
Yeah. When you guys form a team, one of the recommendations I have is create a WhatsApp group, or because it's very easy for social media to just open the app and you can leave a voice audio recording message, and everybody in your team can hear it. That's what we've done. So we have a Standing for Truth WhatsApp group, and we post links to each other. We're joking around, of course. We're just we talk about young Earth creation so much. Sometimes we don't talk about it, but it's great because our team is growing in number, and we're very diverse, and we meet each other. Some of them just live on social media. They post on X all day long. That's all they love to do. But
Yeah.
they're part of our team, so they're learning as well. And then what can happen is we've got a diverse group of people that are all age ranges, and we chat all the time. And as long as you're posting and you're commenting with each other, it becomes fun. You're branching out, and you're like basically equipping and training somebody, and then they go out on their own if they want to, and then they'll start their own channel. And it doesn't just have to be like for specifically standing for truth. We've got a lot of people part of the team that have their own channels that do things. So that's kind of what our goal was, is to equip. Like for example, Eric Hovind has a channel
Oh, yeah.
different than his dad, and
Yeah.
he said, "Hey, I really want to have a Google Drive that has all different slides in it for presentations.
Oh, yeah.
Can you add images to those?" I was like, "Sure." So
Yeah.
anybody can go there now and they say, "I want to give a talk on Adam and Eve." So they can go there and then boom, there's a whole slide presentation from visuals that I made that are
All
on
right.
that.
Well, hey, Matt, that was great. All those ideas and how to reach the next generation and teach the churches and have the social media. That was awesome. When you started, like when Donnie started, and you guys kind of started from scratch, and maybe there's somebody else who wants to do it. What insights
Yeah.
would you give them so that they can get to where you are a little faster and miss some of the potholes.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing you want to do is inundate the internet by constantly uploading on social media, even if it's hard. Find out like the criteria. For example, if you upload on YouTube and then put it on TikTok, TikTok will remove your video for copyright infringements. So you learn, if it's a short, I need to put it on TikTok first because if I put it somewhere else downstream, it's going to get removed and flagged, and my whole channel will get removed. And then, but you gotta be posting, at least twice a week minimum to make the algorithm get your content and be like, oh, they're serious. This is worth promoting. Because the companies like that only care if you're making them money. So they want you to be monetized because it helps them. So you got to think, if this is a business, if I'm working for them, what would they want? Well, they want work out of you. They want content. They want you pushing out stuff. And they don't like young earth creation content. So what they do is a lot of social media like YouTube, for example, if you made a channel and it was based on money, let's say cryptocurrency, well, ads really want to run on a cryptocurrency website or a banking YouTube channel. And so what they'll do is they'll put lots of commercials in there because it'll make them more money. So your channel being Young Earth Creation, not a lot of people are going to want to put ads on there. So you're not going to make as much. So to make up for that, that's okay. If you're trying to make money, then obviously Young Earth Creation isn't the revenue generator that you probably want to do. A lot of people go, you guys are into it for money. It's like, well, not really. If I did, I wouldn't be doing Young Earth Creation. It doesn't make me any money. I'm not monetized on YouTube. My books are the lowest cost you can possibly put them on Amazon, so I make not a cent from them, and they're free. If you actually go to our website, Creation is Clothing, all of our books are free from a one click. They take you directly to the Google document. So we're not doing this for money at all. We're just
Wow.
doing it to pass the knowledge on and to give it to people. And we show how accurate it is with debates. So Donnie, he hosts mostly lots of debates. That's great. And then what we do is we branch out from that by having a backup channel. That's mine, the Young Earth Creation. It's a backup channel in case his ever gets taken down. And then we also have other social media. He uploads on Facebook. I do the hosting on X or Twitter X. And so we branch out and we post everywhere that we possibly can. And then that helped us grow like crazy. For example, YouTube Shorts are great because they build your channel, but they don't make any money. So they're great for getting views, but they don't do anything for generating revenue. So it depends on why you're doing this. If you need to quit your job and rely on Young Earth Creation, you're going to have a different program than ours. Ours is about getting the content out to people. So we diversify, but you need to be hyper specific. People love Noah's flood. They love dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And those are like the two main topics. If you talk about those two, matter of fact, the only video that's gone viral completely on my channel is a Noah's flood video, and followed by another Noah's flood video at probably 700,000 views, as
Wow.
opposed to the 1.9 million as the first one. And then
Wow.
Donnie's videos are also viral. Guess what? It's Noah's flood.
Sure.
It's Noah's
Sure.
flood. Those topics are really good. So I'm letting you guys know now. When you're talking about Noah's flood and dinosaurs, you've already struck gold. When you go to Genesis apologetics, Noah's flood. When you go to answers in Genesis, Noah's flood, dinosaurs. It's a very consistent theme. People love to know about those things because one, they're awesome topics, and they're also the most controversial. So controversy sells.
Now, when you're doing your when you're doing your debates, you're using Yardstream, is that right?
Oh, StreamYard. Yes.
StreamYard. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the easiest and most compatible with YouTube. And it also rolls over. Now you can like click on other streams like X and it'll stream both at the same time. So it's
Right.
kind of convenient for that as well. But it
Right.
doesn't do it for Rumble. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
Rumble's also a good one to be on.
Yep.
And it doesn't link for some reason. Maybe there's a way to do it. I just don't know.
And I don't know if you have that slide, the recap. You don't have to share the screen, but if you just would like to recap the points of how we can get this into the mainstream, the hydroplate. If you could just highlight the recap of what you've given us.
Yeah, absolutely. One, it would be collaborate with others, be as diverse as possible, and invite everybody from young to old. Doesn't really matter. Don't be divisive on denominations because remember, we're all trying to learn. This is a scientific aspect of biblical young Earth creation. Lots of people, Jehovah's Witnesses are young Earth creation, Mormons are young Earth creation, and if you're like, I don't talk to those people, it's like, well, how are you ever going to convert them if you want to? If your goal is to say that they're wrong and you want them to believe you, the last thing you want to do is not talk to them.
Okay, so we got team building. What else do you got for us there, Matt?
Yeah, well, actually, one of the hardest things is when you do go to a public school, there is an organization called the Freedom from Religious Act, and
Huh.
it's they attack and they'll sue an independent person for trying to get creation taught.
Oh, and you want to share
Yeah,
something? All right.
I do. This is fascinating. Check this out.
Okay.
This is an amazing story I'm going to give you right now. What this is a chart that was shown that shows that humans are about how much genetic relation there is between them, and then with chimp, and then it goes to pig. Did you know
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
And then orangutan, and then a dog. So it ranges. This was discovered by Eugene McCarthy, who is a specialist in hybrids. He wrote a book called The Avian Hybrids, and it's a best-selling book. It's 5,000 cited 5,000 different times, and he predicted lots of hybrids, and he's been right. Actually, massive amounts of hybrids have been found in nature, and it's kind of a funny theory that they fell in love with each other and they had an offspring that became a human. But he, what he did is he said, no, no, no. I've shown you that this is a possibility because look at this shared characteristic traits. I still believe in evolution, and it's
Yeah.
still evolution is still true, but it's a hybrid. And he said, look, humans have more autosomal sequences that match a pig than a chimpanzee.
Right.
And guess what? His critics wouldn't allow it to get peer reviewed because of lack of scientific consensus.
Right. Oh,
He
yeah.
lost his mind. Look what he said. He said, if you had criticized
Oh, share
Darwin,
your
it's,
screen. I'm not seeing your screen right now, if you
oh, you're
can.
not.
No,
Oh, no. Oh, man. Sorry. This whole time I've been sharing images. Sorry.
that's
Okay,
fine.
so here's what he looks like. Here's the book that he wrote on avian hybrids. Here's the confirmation of all of the different hybrid species animals that there are. Um, And this is the pig chimpanzee love sequence that came about because he's the one that discovered that there was a pig more similar to us than even the orangutan, which breaks phylogeny.
Well,
And this is
yeah.
and then, of course, right? And then he started looking at the similarities. He was like, wow, we have more similarities with pigs in lots of different regions, even the kidneys, our
Yeah.
blood, our epidermis, the layer of fat that runs under the skin. As a matter of fact, there's all kinds of similarities. So he wanted to publish this paper. He said, look what I found. And they said, sorry, you lack the scientific consensus.
Sure.
This is the university. This is the main criticism
Oh,
for
yeah.
his review for not
Right.
being published. And he published this, and he came out and said, if you criticize Darwin, it's like saying that there is no Jesus in a Baptist church. So he got his
Yeah.
own team despised him because he
Oh,
went
yeah.
against the consensus.
Oh,
So
yeah. I like that quote. That's their sacred cow, man. You can't criticize evolution. Jerry Bergman's
no.
got 3 volumes of books on people that criticize evolution or teach or mention intelligent design. Oh, could you stop sharing your screen real quick?
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so yeah, it's there now we can see you. Yeah, it's that's their sacred cow and they won't allow it to be criticized. Just a tragedy. And when I was debating that science teacher, I asked him, "Well, hey, which genome is bigger, the chimps or humans?" And he didn't
Yeah.
know. And the chimp genome is bigger. It was 3.3 billion base pairs, and the humans was 3.1 billion base pairs. And so that was a 6% difference. It's like, well, how
Dang.
can something that's 6% bigger be 1% different? So yeah, they cooked the books
Yeah.
every which way but Sunday to get that 1%. So you talked about group building and was it apps, applying? What other highlights do you got?
Right. I really like the idea of focusing one on teaching at churches and
Yeah.
educating parents because if you're educating the parents, that'll flow over into the children, but that has to come by educating the churches.
Yeah. Do you give talks at churches?
No, I haven't started yet, but I'm going to. Matter of fact, my flash drive is right here and I'm ready to
Praise
go.
the Lord. That's what we
It's
need. We
starting.
need another person on the microphone. And if they
Yeah.
wanted you to speak, how would they contact you?
Oh, good question. I would probably assume they could just go to our again our YouTube channel,
Standing for
Standing for
Truth.
Truth, and just message us there.
Okay.
They email Donnie because that's how he gets all of his debates. They just email Standing for Truth
Yep.
Ministries, or
Yep.
and
Yep.
then bam, it's just right there.
And you're in Palm Springs, California, and there's a battle going on there. So if there's a church that wants a biblical perspective, yeah, praise the Lord.
Yeah,
Praise the Lord.
I've gone to one, and that it wasn't for me though. I was just the audience,
Yeah.
and it was uh, Dan from Genesis Apologetics giving a talk on Noah's flood, and then the Q&A came in, and I was like, don't worry, I'll do this part for you." So I got up there and did the answers because
Wow.
that's kind of like where I specialize. I can answer pretty much any question for
Wow.
those things. So that's what I like. So my goal when I go is I don't need to necessarily give a presentation. I'm
Yeah.
there to answer whatever the audience wants because
Yeah.
that's what matters to me. So
Yeah.
I got my slide will just be completely full of every topic
Yeah.
of and then just go there from
Wow.
there. So
And
that'll
you
be
can
fun.
and you can find them when you need them. That's the hard part.
Yeah, exactly. Ken has them numbered, and so he just goes, "Pull up slide 118."
Wow.
Mine are not numbered, so I
Yeah.
have a lot harder time.
What I've started to do is put a topic in the write-ups, then I can just Command F and just search flood or whatever, and then I get the slides. I would
Good.
encourage you to record those if you can, and so
Oh,
that
okay.
people can see them. I've given talks at churches and colleges and stuff too, and that you can see them on my Solidify Your Faith YouTube channel. And again, I've got a website called solidifyyourfaith.weebly.com that has some my contact info. But yeah, we need to be in the battle. We need to be equipping the parents and the churches and building teams and getting on social media. And then applied applications. Was that another one?
Yes, yeah, practical applications. I was let people know why this matters.
Yeah,
How is this used in geology? How is this used in paleontology? How is this used in genetics? And
right.
once you teach people like there's a reason that this exists, there's a reason that this matters,
Yeah,
and that we can use this knowledge to like look for oil, for example. Where is oil always found next to? It's found next to salt domes. How did salt domes form? They form in the ocean. They form from a flood. Oh, surprise, surprise. So you can use the practical application of knowing that there was a flood and how to look for certain things geologically. And then the biggest problem I think people have is they associate everything with a date because of
yeah,
radiometric dating. If they could just erase those dates for 1 minute, the
yeah,
story completely changes their
yeah.
view.
Oh yeah.
So that's
Oh yeah.
it. I like the practical application. And then how you do that is just write up little articles here and there. So when people say, "Why does this matter?" You say, "I wrote an article on that. Come check it
Yeah.
out." And so that's what we're doing a lot of right now because we're writing tons of articles. That's why you haven't seen me make videos. I've been constantly writing. So now you can have practical application. People say, "Well, what happened after, from the flood to the Tower of Babel? How did like what was it like? Like what was the time frame? How did all the haplogroups form? What is the mutation rate?" Boom,
Yeah.
we answer those kind of things.
Do you have a
So,
Substack where people can find those articles, or how
oh
would they?
yeah, it's just directly on the Standing for Truth Ministries website, and there's a tab that says articles, and then all of them are listed right there. They're all free, and we've been adding like maybe 5 a week,
Wow.
maybe even more.
So is that standingfortruth.com or .org?
Standingfortruthministries.com. Yeah,
Standingfortruthministries.com. Great. Yeah.
right.
That's what we've
And
got. We've got the information. We've got everything. We got the winning hand. We just have to have them lay their cards down. And
yeah,
that's when the victory is going to be.
we
So,
just need to focus more content on kids probably. We're not very good
yes.
at it because we're kind of more technical minded.
Yes.
We focus more on adults. So it would be really good if there was a ministry more like Genesis Apologetics that's really got books and articles and videos and stickers and coloring books and toys. We can't produce those kinds of things.
Right.
We're not a warehouse. We're not a physical location. And so anybody that could produce something for kids, like a hydroplate theory for kids, why isn't there one, right? Why
Well,
is, that
yeah.
would be great if there existed.
I'm trying to get into Abeka homeschooling. This is a
Yeah.
flood model. Why don't can you present this? And they had me talk to the science lead. I'm not sure if they're going to do it or not. But that's the other thing. Which homeschool curriculum is going to allow their students to think first? Which
Mm.
one is going to allow for them to see the catastrophic model and the hydroplate model? And like Walt Brown, he said every student, even in public schools, they should do an origins project where they look at all the evidence and then they decide whether it was from creation or evolution. And it doesn't matter what they decide, but they have to argue it. They have to rationalize it. The way they argue to support it gets graded, because then that'll
Mm.
sharpen their critical thinking skills. Because the ones I meet at the college, they know what to think, but they don't really know how to think. And when I meet someone who can think, it's like, well, where'd you go to school? And 95% of the time, they were homeschooled. So,
Wow.
yeah, and
Wow.
so I think the homeschool, curriculum, I think we need to get it in there. And but they're just probably following the consensus too. So it's going to be which one's going to be the bold, which one's going to be bold and allow
Yeah.
people to think, the students to develop their critical thinking skills.
And
Because
like you said, I think it comes down to the aspect of people just don't know that it exists.
yeah,
So we just have to let them know, like, no, there are alternative theories
exactly.
there.
And as far as why it matters, there's a Walt Brown's biography. There was a chapter of him in what was it, 11, Christian Men of Science, 11 Men Who Changed the World. And Walt Brown's story, his biography is in there. And I read it on my YouTube channel. And in there, his wife, they were theistic evolutionists, and he was going young Earth and all this stuff. She goes, well, why does it matter? This flood model, why does it matter? And then he said, well, why did Jesus die on the cross? Or why did Jesus die on the cross? And she said, to pay for our sins. And he said, well, what is sin? Where did that come from? If
Yeah.
Adam and Eve aren't real, then
Right.
sin's just fiction. And that's the big problem we got with the old earthers. They put their faith in the geologic column, which has death before sin. And if that's the case, then sin and really, what's Jesus going to return it to? So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of ramifications here. So hopefully things get cleared up in our
Yeah, I
churches and
completely
in our
agree.
society. When you talked about reaching the young people, there's a section I've done vacation Bible school talks. It's just quick 5 minutes and I'm done, to keep
Yeah.
attention. But that's on YouTube. There's a playlist of that on that Solidify Your Faith YouTube channel too. So thank you for these highlights. Praise the Lord for that. Any closing comments you want to make, Matt?
Yeah, I recommend people go visit the Ark Encounter, go see these things in real time. Visit biblical creation seminars if there's any in your town. Ask your pastor or your priest and ask them about young Earth creation. Say what is our view here at this church? Just say I was just wondering because there seems to be kind of a divide. A lot of people see Genesis as just allegorical. Is there literal? Like, what is Adam and Eve to you? Was there a first human like Adam and Eve, or were there like who were Neanderthals? See if your priest or pastor knows any of this. They might not be scientific, they might be completely theological, and they might not have an answer. Does he recommend you to go learn? Does he just say it doesn't matter? Does he say it does matter? I'm not saying find a new church. I'm just saying you're going to want to know answers that you might not get at church. So therefore, you're going to have to go outside of that. It's okay that your church might not have that answer. That's fine. Not everybody is like science. That's fine if your pastor does not, but you're going to need to learn this on the side yourself now. You're going to have to be your self-taught. But because of the internet, it becomes very easy nowadays.
And then if anybody wants to contact him, it's Standing for Truth. And what a blessing that is. What in your channel with all the debates. So again, thanks for your time, Matt, and
Thank
have
you.
a blessed day.
All right, thanks. Awesome.